Hello! Are you looking for a book to add to the curriculum for TE 348? Are you curious about what makes this book the most perfect addition to the class? Then you've come across the right commercial. Fish in a Tree by Linda Mullally Hunt would definitely be beneficial to include in the list of books for TE 348. Before I explain why, I'll give you a quick summary as to what the story entails. A young girl named Allie is placed into a new class after many outbursts and problems in her previous class. Her teacher, Mr. Daniels, takes a whole new approach to Allie's education. For her entire time in school before this, her teachers had failed to notice that she actually struggled with reading. Mr. Daniels, on the other hand, realizes that Allie has a problem and helps her to understand that she isn't stupid, much like she had thought. She actually has dyslexia. After facing years of low self-esteem, bullying, and embarrassment, Allie finally understands why she is the way that she is. Mr. Daniels decides to work one-on-one with her to help her grow into the great student that she has wanted to be. Along the way, Allie overcomes obstacles and deals with many issues, like bullying, struggling to make friends, and standing up for herself. It's a very inspiring, realistic fiction story that is a great read. Now, to explain why this book should be a part of the curriculum. Reason number 1. It would encourage great class discussion. Over the course of the semester, we have discussed the need for books to lead to discussion in our own classrooms. Jim Trelease talks about the importance of leaving time for discussions with the class. In his list of the do's and don'ts of read-alouds, he states, quote, "Allow time for class and home discussion after reading a story. Thoughts, hopes, and fears and discoveries are aroused by books. Allow them to surface and help the child to deal with them through verbal, written, or artistic expression if the child is so inclined." The plot of this book centers around dyslexia, which could pique the interest of students that may have learning disabilities or those that do not, and don't know even what dyslexia means. Explaining to the class that people are different and we have to be accepting of that can be a great way to start the discussion. Perhaps bring up that people learn in different ways and talk about the techniques that Mr. Daniel uses to help Allie what her other teachers did not. One could also talk about the bullying that Allie faces and that she eventually partakes in herself. Ask the students what they would do if they saw bullying happen in school. Another topic to touch on could be the family dynamic in Allie's family, as Allie's dad is actually away on military leave, and her mother has to take care of her whole family. Overall, there are multiple routes the discussion could go down, but there will definitely be plenty for the class to talk about. Reason number 2. Fish in a Tree could be a perfect example of mirrors and windows. If a student has dyslexia or a learning disability, they would greatly identify with Allie, which would be a great example of a mirror. As we discussed in class, mirrors are when we see ourselves reflected in what we read, acting as a sense of validation for the reader. However, we also discussed one issue being that not everyone sees him or herself reflected in the books that are read. Some may consider the tale of Allie actually as a single story, which is a common issue related to this problem that we mentioned in class. Some students, on the other hand, may see Allie and her story as a window, exposing them to other places and people, like we said in class. For many of the students in class, coming across someone with dyslexia is something they've never experienced. But it's important as future teachers to understand what dyslexia is and what it entails. So using this book as a window can open students' eyes to a whole new world that they've never been exposed to previously. Reason number 3. This book uses a minimum of 3 different lenses. Actually, I'd say 4, because I can think of another book related to this called Words with Wings that portrayed another exemplary teacher. So yes, 4 different lenses. Wow! The personal lens is a huge one for this book. I think a lot of students would identify with the things that Allie has to deal with, whether it be a learning disability, bullying, having a father in the military, having to move a lot, being embarrassed in class because she's feeling dumb, etc., etc. In class, we define the personal lens as interactions between the reader and the text. According to the diagram we looked at in Class 11, this can involve the text itself, the textual lens, the artistic lens, the context, and the critical lens. In TE 348, all of these aspects could be used to relate or not relate to fish in a tree. The critical lens could also be used while reading this book. It is possible to read it without believing everything that Linda Mullally Hunt, the author, writes about Aunt Allie and Mr. Daniel's endeavors to help her overcome her obstacles. Some questions to consider could include, does this teacher single Allie out too much? Is he using her as sort of a test subject for his research for his special education certification? Is the author perhaps portraying a single story of what it's like to have dyslexia? And so on and so forth. And finally, the literary lens could also be utilized. There is plenty of direct and indirect characterization. Linda Mullally Hunt utilizes a first-person narration, which helps the reader understand Allie's thoughts on a deeper level. We also understand her indirectly based on her interactions with those around her, whether it be Mr. Daniels, her mom, her brother, or her friends in class. There is plenty of imagery throughout the story as well, as Allie prefers to draw instead of read, because she struggled with it for so long. That is her form of expression. This leads to a lot of figurative language. On top of all this, there is some foreshadowing even about how Allie's brother ends up determining that he has dyslexia. Overall, Fish in a Tree is a great option for TE 348. With the three reasons listed over the last few minutes, it should be clear what book should be chosen. This one!